Now you're awake. I just wanted to make sure that you'll be awake in my presentation. Otherwise, I'll think I'm very boring. And the moment I think that, then I'll lose focus. Okay, so I was not supposed to make a presentation, but I'm going to. I've been able to find something to put pale kwa dirisha. Kwa dirisha. What do you call that thing? Projector. Yes, yes. To project on the wall. So I'm just going to talk about a project we did as our response to COVID. So essentially, if I give a very brief background, first I want to say something. Please visit the booths of the exhibitors, because most of the exhibitors that are there are dealing with plan implementation. Not so much planning, preparation of plans, but they are dealing with implementation of plans. The only thing, Engineer Jacinta, and I've told Butaki out there that they needed to have come here with maps that show what projects you've done here in Kilifi, so that it becomes a bit more real how you link plans to implementation, plans to projects, yeah? How you move from plans to projects. So I have the benefit of course, having been involved in preparing the county special plan for Kilifi. And one thing I'm happy to report is even before the plan has been approved, it's been implemented, substantially implemented by the three roads authorities, particularly the roads. You know, roads are the most important thing. Infrastructure is the most important component of our plan. So normally we say we need these roads done, we need water connected here, we need electricity in this place, in this region to open it up for development. And I can comfortably say that based on a tour I did a few weeks ago to Kilifi with my board, I'm also in the Kenya Rural Roads Authority Board of Directors. I was shocked to learn that, you know, one-on-one, we have been implementing that plan. KURA didn't even know there is a plan. So meaning the plan was very good because it anticipated what the residents would want, and it also anticipated what the policy of government and what the intentions of government for this area would be. So I think there is also a plan prepared now that we are at the coast for Kwale, and again, even that one, I can assure you that what the plan said is what also the roads authorities have implemented, almost 100%. So part of the challenge we've been having is that we never translate plans into projects. And that usually becomes a difficulty, that planners are very good at preparing plans, and then that's it. You have this very beautiful book with maps, and they go into shelves, and more often than that, we do not do the follow-up of going to who is it that implements plans. Yeah? In this country, we have projects implemented by national government, and we have those implemented by county governments. And we have also planning at both levels. National government prepares plans, county governments prepares plans. But the big, when it comes to projects, really is government that has the money. National government has a lot of money for infrastructure projects in particular. So we got into a conversation during the COVID pandemic. There was a lot of panic. Everything was closing down. And we had two questions. How do we keep the economy afloat? How do we keep the economy going amidst the pandemic? And this conversation, we were having it with KEPSA, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And there were two areas that we looked at. So for the architects, they took how do we keep construction sites open? So architects, AAK took that to figure out how to keep construction sites open. And then for the planners, we were told to figure out how to keep the markets open, because we were very scared that a number of things would happen. So just to give us a slight background, of course, we had an invisible enemy called the COVID pandemic. And then that in itself, we didn't know where it's coming from. Everyone is thinking of the city because it's congested. So we initially, you remember, everyone expected that within a very short time, places like Kibera and other informal settlements, there will be death all over the place because they are congested. Of course, it turned out that the people who were dying those initial days were people who had been flying and people from affluent areas who had had the opportunity to go to some of these countries where the pandemic was. Fortunately, we've been spared, so that whole question of we have not really seen mass deaths in informal settlements, which is a subject of research. You may want to take that as a subject of inquiry, research inquiry. Then there was the question of looming famine and loss of income. And the famine was this way, that because there was lockdown, the cities were not going to get the food. So the food was not going to come into the city because there was no movement. And then incomes, it was about, most of the food is traded by informal traders. They are the ones, they are a critical part of the food supply chain in the city. So we're worried that if it's total lockdown and they can't move out of their houses, you're telling people to stay indoors, how do they go and get food from the wholesale market and then bring us to the retail markets? And then safeguarding food supplies and protecting livelihoods. I will not repeat myself. And then the solution was thought that it would be a COVID responsive market spaces. Now, just another bit of background. This project was, while we were in that discussion, you know, industry was engaging a lot with government to try and assist government think about what to do about COVID, how to respond to some of these issues. So in the process, when we started the discussion as planners, KIP was right at the forefront of this. So we had a big discussion. Oh, you're not hearing me? Sai? Sai? Oh, asante. So KIP was at the forefront of that conversation. And when we had our Zoom meeting, our webinar on that, Planner Dr. Konyango, who's the Director of Urban Development, called me and said, I think this is something we can work out. We can have a partnership between the ministry, the institute, and the university, Technical University of Kenya, where I come from. So we created that partnership and we started thinking of how do we design COVID-compliant markets. And the PS who was here the other day, Housing and Urban Development PS, Hinga, also came in and said, hey, I'll commit money to this process. So we started thinking through and trying to figure out then how do we come up with COVID-compliant markets. Now just, if I go to the, before you go to the stalls, the project concept, you can just go back a bit. So the goal of the project was to ensure minimum disruption of the food supply chain and enable livelihoods, pursuits in urban areas. Okay, the concept was to design a prototype COVID-19 responsive open air market. And then the components were public health and sanitation was a critical component, consideration. And then public education, nutrition, tips during lockdown. You know, we're all scared that if we don't have access to food or rather, anyway, this COVID thing, we were told we have to eat ginger, garlic. And so we needed people to really tell people so that we don't start eating all sorts of things and saying, nidawa. Eh? And then facilities innovation. So the planning considerations were this, that the market has to be sited in high population areas. Those are the areas we are thinking about, preferably along the streets with minimum vehicular traffic. So we were thinking also of converting streets into open air markets, just like the stadium was converted in Brazil. And then there was a consideration that abutting facilities should not generate heavy traffic flows because we were worried that we would not want to create congestion. There should be sufficient possibilities for rerouting traffic. Streets should be protected from strong winds because this is Nihoma. and then ease of entry and exit, but for a maximum of 2 points of ease, etc. Adjacent properties should serve as sort of walls or something like that. Zoning requirements for different activities, we were to come up with that. By the way, eventually it boiled down to designing, of course you needed the space to plan the space, and then you did the stall. Here in Kenya, you've all seen our markets usually tend to be on the street. So you just come and put something on the street, and then you put your wares on top, and then you sell. So we needed to create a stall that was going to deal with that issue. And we had various considerations. So just so that I go quickly. Now, this also is a project, just as a way of background, that attracted very high attention to the highest office in the land. The president became its patron and started pushing for the project itself. Now, he took a keen interest in the project. So we got, then we can go to this, to the stalled summary 3.0. I think those pictures are too small, but anyway, if I can just go, we developed various prototypes of markets. So we had a fixed day market with the back storage, and then we had a fixed day market with kitchenette. So you could also have someone selling in front and then cooking at the back. Then we had a fixed day market without back storage, so a much smaller stall. One which is fixed or temporary stall with display shelves, and then fixed temporary stall with a box, etc. And then we had one which we had mobile options, which was a hand-pushed towed by either a bicycle or e-bike. Then you had one you could push and with an umbrella on top, and then you just open it up and you put your crates on top, and then at the end of the day you return them into. Then we had a tricycle, which was to pull the stalls. Now, I think we go to 4.0. Just, I'll use that one example to demonstrate. If you could go to 4.0, yes, the first one. So that was the stall that we came up with. And as you can see, there was a very big insistence on social distancing, or physical distancing, as we later called it. By the way, planners adopted physical distancing rather than social distancing, because we didn't want to distance people socially, but we wanted you to have a gap between yourselves, but keep talking to one another. So the components included display shelves, and these were 8-number display shelves with crates, and then an interaction counter where you make the transaction. And then there was a back storage, plenty of storage at the back for your market produce. And then a sanitation unit, which was for, of course, washing hands. And then physical distancing elements, as you can see them in front there, the ones which are branded in front. A roof with a provision for solar panel installation. So we're looking at it that if you had all these stalls together, instead of just putting a mabati on top, you use solar panels as the roofs, so you generate electricity for the market as well. And then you had fascia for shading, but serving the extra purpose of branding. And what we were thinking at the time is how we can partner with, counties can partner with private sector, so that private sector sponsors the production of these stalls, or for obvious reasons that the mamambogas will not be able to afford the cost of. I'll tell you what the cost at the end of the day was. So next page, you can see it from the front side. And then the next one, Valentine, you're stuck, eh? Oh, sorry. So those two, that's the front elevation, the view from the front, and then the next one is the view from the side, as you can see again. Now, if we were to look at it from on top, that has measurements. I don't know whether you can see the measurements. So the total stall, together with the physical distancing features was coming to 5 meters in length, but the width was 1.7 meters thereabout. And then you have the storage at the back. You can see the person just in between there, then the display counter. If you can scroll down a little bit. Display counter. No, sorry, scroll backwards. So that's a frontage where you have someone enters from about that point at the bottom and then goes to the buyer's space. Then you have the interaction. So you just pick things like from a supermarket. You choose what you want. First you wash your hands. I have nothing to point, but when you just enter, that's where the washing thing was. But that was optional if you are to put this thing on the street on its own, at the corner of the street. But in a market scenario, we had them collectively, let's say at the beginning of a line of stalls. So you wash your hands, then now you come. So you pick the produce for yourself, and then you present it at the interactive counter for the trader, and you do the transaction there and the exchange. The next page will show you again the photograph, I think. Now, so as I told you, the president picked this up and he was very excited about it, and he said he wants these things implemented. At first we thought of using City Park Stadium. City Park has not been, it has been in a very bad state of disrepair and has not been in use for a long time. So we thought we could just invade City Park and use it, turn it into a market for that duration. But then he said, I am repairing City Park, I'm rebuilding it, so don't use it. He gave us City Stadium. He gave us City Park. City Park is in Parklands, in Parklands. So the story of City Park is this. City Park burnt like 10 years ago, or something like that, during Governor Kidero's tenure. And when it burnt down, it was reconstructed, but then it was never finished. So the president was coming in now to complete the market. And so we had a lot of stakeholder engagements on all sorts of, I'm about to finish, on all sorts of issues, including COVID itself. We sensitized the traders. They had since moved to the parking lot on the front side. And because KURA is here, they were going to be evicted very soon because KURA is dueling that road to the UN, Limuru Road. It's called Wangari Maathai now, Professor Wangari Maathai. So they're going to eat into that parking space. So it just came in the nick of time. So I want to report that we were very successful, and a couple of months ago, I think 3-4 months ago, we implemented the project fully. So it consisted of 270 market stalls. Violet, can you go to the pictures of the market itself? So these were based on registered traders. But there were more sheds. I think there were 12 sheds in City Park, but we were only given 3 that had not been completed, which we now did this type of stall. So I think there are some photographs which you can see the market in full operation. Think of it this way, it's like City Park market now it looks like Uchumi supermarket. It's just like you're in a supermarket inside, but it's an outdoor market. As the pictures come, we are supposed to implement this in several other markets, like Uhuru Market in Kisumu, where we are supposed to fabricate 880 stalls. And then we are also supposed to do it at Chaka Market, where we are supposed to fabricate 740 stalls. We worked with Juakali, so the plan was also to keep Juakali people busy in the COVID era. So we were, in Nairobi, we worked with 3 Juakali associations, Gong Road, Kamkunji, and Kariobangi. In Chaka, we were to work with the Juakali industry there, and in Kisumu, the Juakali industry there. So everywhere you go, you are to create jobs for Juakali people. So you can see the market when people now put food in there. You can show us another photograph? Yeah, that is us talking with the implementation committee of government plus the market committee. So basically that's how the stall looks. So you have to teach them how to put different, so fruits on some trays. So you had these half trays, the short ones, which were the display trays. And then at the back you had storage trays. And by all concluding, the traders really received these well. Now, by the time we went to City Park, there was no space to do the social distancing elements. So we got rid of that, and COVID was also more or less coming to an end. So we worked with the space we had, which was 2 meters by 1.5 meters. But the amount of produce one trader was supposed to stock, so it reduced the time you need to every day buying produce every day. Of course, someone will bring the issue of whether the produce will stay fresh, but most of it will, because City Park is a very popular market. It's a very popular market. So we went vertical. We activated vertical spaces as compared to horizontal spaces. Yesterday we were talking with the PS, and he has already issued as a letter to do 500 of these stalls, which will be put in strategic places in the city of Nairobi, for which we had tried to have a conversation with the Nairobi Metropolitan on whether, as they do the nice pavements, they could also do some pavements on places we can actually insert like 4 stalls throughout the entire city, so that shopping can be convenient for everybody. Thank you very much for that. So this is an example of how you can respond to COVID and resolve quite a number of problems at a go. Asanteni.